Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the September 1, 2020 City Council meeting for the City of Fairfield. I am going to call the meeting to order. Karen, Ms. City Clerk, would you like to read the statement, please?
Sure. Consistent with the Governor's Executive Order N-2920 regarding public meetings during the COVID-19 emergency, City Council members may attend the meeting telephonically. Members of the public can observe the meeting on Comcast Cable Channel 26, ATTU Verse 99, and web streamed live or at YouTube. Due to COVID-19, a mask is required for entry and must be worn for the duration of the meeting. Do not attend this meeting if you are experiencing symptoms such as coughing, sneezing, fever, difficulty breathing, or other flu-like symptoms. And now I'll take roll call. Councilmember Moy, are you on the line?
Yes, here.
Okay. Councilmember Timm?
Here.
Councilmember VACCARO?
Here.
Vice Mayor BERTANI?
Here.
And Mayor Price is absent tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, and we have a quorum. Dedication this evening will be by Pastor Jeff Hood from First Baptist Church. Is Pastor Hood here? There you are. Thank you. Amen. Councilman VACCARO, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which it stands, one nation, God, indivisible, Thank you. And council reports, Councilman VACCARO, would you like to begin?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Well, first of all, I want to thank all the first responders who dealt with the fires last week. Police, fire, our Public Works Department, who, worked hours and hours trying to save the homes in our city. So I don't think we can really thank people enough for all they did. It's unbelievable that there were no structures lost in the city of Fairfield, and our hearts go out to all the people that lost homes in other cities around our community. Tonight's a little different for me. Normally, I don't have notes when I'm up here talking. The reason why I wanted to have notes tonight is because it's a little personal to me tonight. 12 years ago today, we lost a bright young star in our great city, Matt Garcia. Matt was a victim of senseless violence that unfortunately still exists in our country today. I first met Matt when he was in 9th grade at Armio High School. I served there as principal. He was also friends with my daughter and my son, Nick, who worked tirelessly on his campaign because we believed in his vision for the city. I can still see the smile on Matt's face when I went up to Coffee World, and he had just won election, and who nobody thought he could. And he said, "Hey, Mr. VACCARO, we did it." And I said, "Yeah, well, you said you were, and you did." He became the youngest council member in the state of California at 21 years old. What separated Matt from other people that run for office is his passion, his sincerity, and his true belief and love for the city. And he did love the city of Fairfield. He understood, too, that some people didn't give him a chance. Said, "No, what are you running for? You're a kid." Well, he didn't want to hear that. He just wanted to hear that he was going to win. And he truly believed it in his heart. And I read this, I got a little choked up, but, after his victory, Matt would come to the school that I had become principal at, Golden Hills Community School, where students are sent to if they're expelled or probation referred. And Matt would come to the school usually once or twice a week, and he made sure he talked to every single student there and told them that they could succeed, because he did, and the things that he was trying to do for the city that he loved. On that night 12 years ago, tonight, September 1st, 2008, we lost the heart and soul of our city, because that's really what he was at that time. A young 21-year-old kid who had the hope, 21-year-old man who had the hopes and dreams of making this city great. He had so much promise and a desire. I was humbled when Matt's family asked me to take his seat on the council. I don't know how ready I really was at the time, but I knew one thing. I knew that it was quite an honor to take a young man's place who meant so much to so many people. I'm going to end by saying I never forgot his favorite thing to say to me when he'd come into my office at Armio. And he'd say, "Hey, Mr. VACCARO, I'm going to be mayor of this city someday." And I said, "Okay, well, no, now you can go to class." But I was just kidding around. So, but I would always say, "I absolutely know that, Matt. I absolutely know that." Yeah, I miss you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman VACCARO. Councilman Timm, your report, please.
Thank you. Rick, that was very well said. I think we all miss him, but we also know that I think he's with us. It's also a red letter day in that B. Gail Wilson, who had been the city manager here for about 32 years, passed away today. And for those of you that don't know who B. Gail Wilson was, I can tell you that where City Hall is, the police department, that used to be old housing for the military. And he had a vision and decided that had to go and put in the Civic Center as we know it today. 1971, that was dedicated. But if you go back even farther in time, and I've said this before, B. Gale Wilson was one of the few people that I've had the pleasure of meeting that has a vision or had a vision that took 5, 10, 20, 30 years to come to fruition. Rockville Hills Regional Park, the city bought that in 1966, and they did that because B. Gale Wilson wanted it done. And B. Gale Wilson made it very clear that he ran the city. I think council members thought they ran the city, no, but B. Gale Wilson did, and it was because of his vision. Highway 12, the Highway 12 bypass, Anheuser-Busch, August Bush the third or whatever, actually came here because they were thinking about putting in a bud plant. And because of staff and because of B. Gale, obviously it's there. Solano Mall. We were going to get what he referred to as a tinny little mall. And he told Ernest Hahn from Hahn Construction, you're not going to build that here. If you want a mall, it's got to be a real mall. That came through. But more importantly, I think that when you brought up Matt, and I think of B. Gale Wilson, they were so far apart in worlds and age and experience and knowledge, but they had one thing, and that was vision. I think the city, I know the city owes a debt of gratitude to B. Gale Wilson, and he spawned off staff members under him that have moved on and actually have come to great success. So a red letter day, and Madam Vice Mayor, tonight when we adjourn, I'd like to do it in honor of B. Gale Wilson. And then today, yesterday, actually it was what, 2 weeks ago tomorrow, when we got the phone call at 7 o'clock in the morning to, we got to go, get out, get ready to get out, whatever. Kudos to all the city employees, fire, police, public works, staff, the ones that man the emergency operations center. And it was pretty much touch and go for days and days. But the city came together. I think it functioned almost as well as it could. We had some hiccups with Nixon, we'll talk about that. But on something where basically the west and north side of Fairfield is evacuated, from Rancho Solano to Rolling Hills to Paradise Valley, that's never been done before. You wouldn't even walk into a scenario in a promotion where you're a candidate for upper management and police or fire, and they say, here, you're going to evacuate, I don't know how many thousands of homes, figure out how you're going to do it. And oh, by the way, you got about 2 hours. So my hat's off to you. Ladies and gentlemen, you did well. Red Letter Day, rest in peace, both B. Gale and Maddie. Like I said, I know you're looking down. Madam Vice Mayor, thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you, Councilman Tim. Councilwoman Moy, your report, please.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. My family and I are mourning today our friend B. Gale, and I went to school with his daughter, so I spent a lot of personal time in his home, and I got to see a different side of him that others here in the city may have thought they knew him. What a talented man, and loving beyond anything. I remember one of our friends got into a car accident. He lived with me. This is when I had graduated from high school, and he loved that girl. It was like one of his kids, and he showed up out there at Travis. Of course, he was taken by ambulance and stayed with me all night with her. And he was just a gentleman, very strong-headed. I like that. I'm that way, and I look up to him for that. So very, very, very sad today about our friend. And, one of the fathers really of our city is Councilman TIMM said. Also, I think that what Councilman VACCARO said, especially about my friend and all of our friends, if you ever met him once, he was a friend, Matt Garcia. We'll always remember on this day. We'll always remember him on this day. And I prayed for his family as soon as I woke up this morning. His death changed the trajectory of my life, because while the family wanted Rick, and I think they made a good choice, I also put my name in at that time, and I believe so did Pam. and it changed everything. The city had a pall over it that was unlike anything that I'd ever in my life felt here. It was a feeling of just such a heavy, wet blanket of mourning. I couldn't sleep. I just cried and cried and cried. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to help, and of course, there was nothing I could do but pray. So I gave up my journalism and tried to get on the city council. And then, of course, Frank Carter killed himself. And so we had two openings, and Rick and I jumped in the fire together. And I always think about him, and I think about how close, he was much closer to Matt than I was. But I'd worked really hard to get Matt elected. We wanted a change in this city. We really wanted a change. And we worked hard to get Chuck elected, and we worked very hard to get Matt elected. And there were a lot of people behind him. It wasn't just a young man running around. Damn, I think half this town voted for him. And young people ought to know that, and they ought to think about that, because that is what Matt wanted. He wanted us all to know that we're worthy. He didn't like anybody upset with him. A beautiful, beautiful young man, forever an angel. And that day he died changed the city council. It changed the city, and changed the life of me and Rick, and of course his parents, his father, his stepdad, and his mother, and his sisters. Horrible. But anyway, and I want to just tag that up with, I think Matt would really like this. There's a nonprofit group called Leaders of Men, and this Saturday they're going to be doing mentoring in the park, in Allen Witt Park here. And of course, we're going to be wearing masks and helping young men do the things that our friend Matt did. And I'll be speaking there with them and a few other speakers. And I'm looking forward to it. But I've really been thinking about Matt ever since I was asked. I'm such an honor, asked to come and speak to the young people. So I'm thinking of you, Matt, and I love you. And anyway, thank you. Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Councilwoman Moy. And I really can't add any more substantive love and respect and honor that my colleagues have already stated regarding B. Gail Wilson and Matt Garcia. And so I just say, B. Gail Wilson, thank you for being the courageous visionary that you have been to this city for being city manager for 32 years. Amazing accomplishments that Councilmember TIMM just rolled off, one after the other after the other. We're all better in this city for B. Gail Wilson's service. Rest in peace. And Brother Matt Garcia was the first political candidate who ever knocked on my door. And it blew me away, because I'd voted all my life, but I'd never seen like an actual candidate on my door. Energy, contagious and awesome and positive. And so he really kind of taught me from that first meeting moving forward what's really important in public service, and that's really engaging the electorate face to face. Thank you, Matt. Love you and miss you. That's a big day. It's a very big day. I want to thank Don LaBar, David, representatives from our fire department and police department, all of the participants who attended the town hall meeting on Saturday. It was very productive. I have a long list of issues. I learned a lot, and I have a long list of issues that we will be discussing at our council retreat. Let me just give you some of those. We talked about a couple of models that are working in different cities, that are thinking out of the box kind of models for managing our homeless population and helping our folks get back on their feet. One is called Kahoot, the other is the San Leandro Compact. It's an award-winning strategy used in the city of San Leandro, California, that involves service providers, landlords, importantly, and city support to create a supportive environment for permanent housing. And it really removes the kind of NIMBY-ism that sometimes comes around this issue. We also talked about the prospect of having tiny houses or access homes. We talked a lot about chronic homelessness, making sure that we're using Shelter Solano to its maximum capacity and really figuring out a way to do that because it's not at maximum capacity and it should be in light of COVID-19 social distancing. We talked about the decriminalization of homelessness. At our city council retreat, we're going to have an educational component at the retreat so that we can all discuss and understand what that prospect looks like and why it's important. We also talked about considering a homeless Bill of Rights, having Heidi Barber, who works at Solano County, train and go out with our HIT team more because she's very effective at what she does. And one of the biggest issues that we talked about, and Chief Tibbet, I think you coined this phrase in that conversation Saturday, is we need to connect the dots. We need to make sure that our homeless residents have access to services that are already available, largely through Solano County. There's a lot of resources, a lot of money, and a lot of support, but sometimes for various reasons, our homeless residents can't connect the dots and make that happen. So everybody on this dais and in the city of Fairfield, we hold us responsible for that. We need to do better there. So I just wanted to thank, that's just a few of the things that we talked about. I just wanted to thank everybody for participating. I'm going to be having another virtual town hall meeting on September 12th. That's a Saturday, and it's from 10 to noon. And the agenda that we'll be discussing is really kind of open public comment. It won't be directly just focused on homelessness. We're going to talk about some other issues, but of course, we'll be talking about, I'm sure, homelessness as well. So September 12th, 10 to noon. And I'll just close with saying public safety, firefighters, police officers, first responders, city staff who slept at the office, who didn't go home, thank you so much for your service. It was very scary times. We had our home evacuated, and I actually had a police officer come to my door, Pam, it's time to go now. And I did just that. Amazing. So thank you for putting your lives on the line in public service. And that'll conclude my comments. Mr. City Manager, your report?
Yep, thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Just two things. First, I echo what each of the council members has said about our firefighters and police personnel. From an insider's perspective, their operations through that emergency was world class. I mean, it was absolutely impressive. I'm still new to the city, 5 months now. First emergency I've been through with this team, and they were absolutely top notch. And I've been to a few different organizations, and I was incredibly impressed with their professionalism and just how well oiled the machine is, how well the communications went. And I'm really proud to be a part of the team here. Second thing I will say is that last Friday we closed the business grant program that council authorized a few weeks back. There were over 500 applications submitted. 319 ended up being eligible. There were some businesses that either were ineligible or submitted multiple times. And so there's 319 eligible applicants. We conducted the lottery Monday afternoon. 73 businesses were selected under the lottery up to the $400,000 mark. That list is published on our website, fairfield.ca.gov/cares. and the Small Business Development Center, starting today and through the rest of this week, will be reaching out to the businesses that were selected so that we can get that grant money into their hands. That's my report.
Thank you very much. And Ms. City Clerk, your report, please.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. I would just like to thank Pastor Jeff Hood, who gave the invocation today, but he also adopted a section of Travis Boulevard, and they had a huge cleanup over the weekend. There must have been 50 people that attended. And then I also want to thank Tony Wade. He adopted Davis Drive. He's also adopted a park, but he also wrote an article in the Daily Republic on Monday about the Adopt a Street program. So I want to thank him for that. And then lastly, I just want to read something from the librarian, Tim Madigan. He just wanted everyone to know that Saturday service will start on September 12th at the Fairfield Civic Center Library, and the other two big branches, John F. Kennedy Library and the Vacaville Public Library. Hours will be the same as Fridays, and they will start a senior hour, or they will continue the senior hour from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. and open to the general public till 5 p.m. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Presentations. Mr. City.
Nothing tonight. Thank you very much.
A lawyer that doesn't have a report, really? Okay.
Trying to
thank
be
you.
efficient here.
Thank you. Okay, presentations.
Okay, presentation 1, proclamation recognizing the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, women's right to vote. And it'll be presented by our very own Vice Mayor BERTANI.
Thank you, Ms. City Clerk. This is from the Office of the Mayor of the City of Fairfield, a proclamation for the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution, dated August 18th, 2020. Whereas the bold, courageous, and powerful women who fought for the ratification of the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution on August 18th, 1920, deserve special celebration by the City of Fairfield, California, especially on the 100th anniversary of its ratification in 2020. And whereas California was the 18th state to ratify the 19th Amendment on November 1, 1919. And whereas California holds a special place in women's suffrage history, as thousands of California women out on the streets, in the newspapers, in the state capitol, and throughout the great state. And whereas California women gained the right to vote with the passage of the 8th Amendment to the state constitution in 1911, nearly a decade before women voted nationally. And whereas the 19th Amendment did not guarantee suffrage for all women, including Native Americans who did not gain the right to vote until 1924, for Asian Pacific Islander Americans, it was 1952. African American and Latin Americans suffered voter suppression until the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and 1975. And whereas the fact that today women are active in local, state, and national government and are running for office in unprecedented numbers reminds us that we all follow in the footsteps of these resolute American suffragists. And whereas the 19th Amendment to the United States Constitution has played an important role in advancing the right of all women. Now, therefore, Harry T. Price, Mayor of the City of Fairfield, hereby proclaims August 18, 2020 as the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, providing for women's suffrage to the Constitution of the United States, honor the role of the ratification of the 19th Amendment in further promoting the core values of our democracy as promised by the Constitution of the United States. Reaffirm the opportunity for students and adults in the city to learn about and commemorate the efforts of the women's suffrage movement and the role of women in our democracy. And reaffirm our desire to continue to strengthen democratic participation and to inspire future generations to cherish and preserve the historic precedent established by the 19th Amendment. In witness thereof, Harry T. Price.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. And our second presentation is a Nixle update presented by Fire Battalion Chief John Sturdy and Police Lieutenant Josiah Jacobson.
Oh, sorry. Is that better? So I just want to give you a brief overview on how the fire department utilizes Nixle. After the Tubbs fire in 2017, Governor Brown mandated that all public safety agencies have a method of alerting the public. And so in the city of Fairfield, we use Nixle, and that's how we meet this mandate. So for those of you that don't know what Nixle is, it's essentially a web-based program that sends immediate, geographically relevant emergency information, advisory information, or community updates to cell phones, via text message, emails, or to social media platforms. The intent is to give the public timely information and relevant instructions. So in the fire department here in Fairfield, we've used Nixle now for several years. Primarily, we're using it for emergencies only, but we do use it for some relative advisories. So an example of an advisory may be there's a significant amount of visible drift smoke in the area, and we're receiving a lot of 911 calls in the city for that. So in order to alleviate that, we may do a Nixle alert to stop the repetitive 911 calls and just allow people to know there's not a true emergency in the city of Fairfield. This also helps to keep our units in service. So last month, we had a concern raised by some of the residents out in the Cordelia area for a smell of smoke. And the smoke was being generated from a fire that happened in the early morning hours of Napa County. We were not notified of this via Napa. That's not uncommon. Most of the time, if there's a fire in another jurisdiction, and unless they require our assistance, we won't know about it, just like the public won't. So kind of what we're asking is just people to understand that we're not going to put out Nixle alerts for everything that happens. If it's visible smoke and we can identify the cause and we're getting a lot of calls for service on that, then yes, we will put out Nixle alerts for that. So we are committed to timely Nixle notifications when an emergency or a relevant fire event happens in the city. We just saw Nixle was successfully used during the LNU fire last week to help with evacuations in Paradise Valley, the Rolling Hills neighborhood, and Rancho Solano. But the fire department, we prefer Nixle as our emergency alerting system. So we just want the citizens to know that when they get Nixle alerts from us, we're usually working a serious event. And we don't want them to get in the habit of expecting alerts from us constantly because we're concerned about Nixle fatigue and people start ignoring them. So if you get a Nixle alert from the fire department, we want you to take them seriously. So we do try to keep our social media updated with non-emergency related items, and smoke is certainly one of them. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them. No? Okay, and I'll just end with, if you're interested in signing up for Nixle and you haven't yet, just text your zip code to 887777. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for a great report. Madam Clerk, the process for public comment, please.
Persons wishing to address the City Council on subjects not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the Council may do so at this time. The Council cannot discuss or take action on matters not on the agenda for this meeting, but Council members may briefly respond to statements made or questions raised by the public, ask for clarification from staff, refer the matter to staff, request staff to report back to the council at a subsequent meeting, or place the matter on a future agenda. To speak on an agenda item, please complete a speaker's card and give it to me at the latest prior to the time for public comment on that item. Speakers are requested to limit their comments to 4 minutes, summarizing in the last minute. Thank you. And our first speaker tonight will be Gian McDougald. Thank you.
I had the pleasure of knowing Matt Garcia very, very, very well and helped with his campaign and knew him since he was a child. And thank you so much for the tribute today, and also Miguel Wilson from my church. I wanted to talk about something that impacts everyone in this, not only in this room, but in this county, and that is the census. As you know, the census is tied to community funding to include millions of dollars in senior services, Pell Grants, education, after-school care, emergency funding, transportation, and affordable housing. And as many of you know, the census is only done every 10 years. You may not know that the last day to complete the census is this month because it was moved up by someone to September the 31st, 2020. As of July 15th, Solano County has a 68% census response rate. And this means that we only have a very few short weeks to get as close to 100% as possible. And we can really get there with everybody's assistance. And we need your support in terms of a call to action information on your website, on your government website, and in your newsletters, and as elected officials throughout your personal platforms. It only takes 3 minutes for people to complete the census, and the website, my2020census.gov. It's in 13 different languages. And I want to say that one of the, we've been talking about the homeless for so many, every meeting that I attend throughout this county, we always talk about the homeless. But we really need to get a count, because this impacts all of us, and then also possibly be able to provide some services for homeless people. There's just so much to be done, and there's just so much money out there, and there's so much good that we can do if we come together as a community. Everybody has a phone or some kind of media platform. So let's do the census. Let's help some older people who may not know about the census or know how to do it. Let's get everybody aboard for the greater good of the community. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is George Gwynn. And Ruben, can you put the timer on, please? Thank you.
Good evening once again. I was originally going to have all of you some about art. Time out right. But anyway, apparently she lost her weapon bathroom back in July, and she ended up having to pay $1,598 for that, and she got some forgiveness for it, but the other people that were involved that were either suspected or possibly involved in weapons disappearance didn't get the same thing, and that's something I think you guys are concerned about. What happened was there were 3 people that were observed on video that went into the restroom where the weapon was lost. And 2 of them were in the restaurant. They were eliminated, but the 3rd person wasn't. But there was a person that was arrested that didn't look like the person on the video. It's the difference between having a beard and a mustache and not. And it was a family and 2 kids, and they wanted to see a search warrant. They were told they didn't have a search warrant because the members was on probation, which according to this article, most of the articles tell Coast News, but anyway, apparently they went ahead and arrested the people, and they cited family for having a house that was in. They now have a GoFundMe account. They turned it up. But there was another person that found the weapon and was accused of being the person that actually picked up the weapon. So that no good deed goes unpunished, I guess, sometimes. So anyway, this goes to show that what's good for the goose is not good for the gander, and you guys need to think about that kind of stuff. Make selection. Other thing I want to talk about is that there's a CDC, that's the Center for Disease Control, disclosure that only 6% of the COVID claims resulted in death just due to COVID. The other 94% had other causes, and the average was like 2.6 additional causes, which shows that we've really suffered with having businesses shut down and tremendous loss of economic livelihood, okay, due to COVID. And I think you'll find this very enlightening. This goes to show that there are people out there, like the drug companies, that are making tremendous money off this, they hope, if they come up with a vaccine, which 40% of the public doesn't want. So I really think that a lot more has been made of this than should. Obviously, there's COVID, but there's a lot of things that happen in the world that aren't good. Don't extreme. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, and I forgot to call up Nora. She's in to speak about Nixle. Did you still want to do that, Nora? Sorry about that. Come on up.
Good evening. Thank you very much for the Nexel presentation and explanation. And I just want to take the opportunity to thank the city staff, the firemen, the policemen, everybody who helped the city to get past these fires. I'm glad we had the discussion before the unfortunate fire because I set up a second account to try to track how these alerts are being received. And I found that the Alert Salon alert works flawlessly. I've also been communicating with other members, and we agree. For some reason, that one works flawlessly. Always received, always a text. But for some reason, the ones coming, they're not as consistent. Some people get texts, some people get emails. But one thing is clear. It's a technical problem with Nixle. So there's nothing that we can tell you. There's nothing we can say to ask for a change or whatever. We just need to, as a community, continue to help each other as we did. And the people who get the texts, just share it, via Facebook and Nextdoor. And that's what's worked. That's really what helped throughout this emergency that we had. And again, thank you, thank you, thank you. We just cannot thank you enough for what you did to keep us safe. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next speaker is Edward Russell, Jr.
I wonder if your great friend, B. Gail Wilson, met with his dad and your dad possibly back in some shady dungeon, trying to figure out how to keep black folks out of this area and then maybe murder some more indigenous folks that was here long before them so they can take over some of that land for Budweiser. But I digress. I'll let you guys think on that. So I have a question. And actually it's a question, it's a comment. Just had my first grandchild. He's 2 weeks old. So to the officers in here, I was wondering, would you shoot him in the back at 2 weeks old? Or are you going to wait for 20 weeks to shoot him in the back? Or maybe when he's 20 years old, you shoot him in the back. 20 years, 2 weeks, same person, same human being, same spirit, same energy. I asked that question not to say you guys were shooting, of course not, but you're okay with one of your peers squeezing off 40 rounds into a human being, and you ain't got him off your department yet. So, that only just as a grandfather, I'm concerned about, the old quiet is kept, don't say nothing, nothing to happen. And then it further concerns me that you hire a police chief who is so incompetent that she leaves her duty-issued firearm in a greasy chicken restaurant. And that's what you guys are cool with that. Outstanding. Says a lot about you. And then she doubled down on that like she's gambling and then violates some people's civil rights. But in case you're okay with that because you have Rebecca Bell as an officer too, who violated some people's civil rights and you ain't got rid of her. I guess we can go down the line about how you just had an officer tase a paralyzed man because he didn't obey. Obey is like you got a dog, and then this human being is less than a human being, so he couldn't obey you tasing. It says a lot about you folks. You got to live with yourself with that you appointed this person to be a chief. And then for the city manager who would sit here and tell the people, oh yeah, we're going to talk to the faith leaders. Well, newsflash, every black person, every Hindu person, every Asian person doesn't necessarily go to church. You're talking to pastors and reverends. I don't go to church, all right? Why don't you go talk to those people on Grande Circle, Del Rio, where people no reason. Oh, I was interrogated also, but that's a different story. Why don't you go there and ask those people what they think, what their input would be as far as the police chief, instead of some dude in a robe who's allegedly speaking the gospel. I don't understand that. So, yeah, that's all I got. And I would say to, hey, yo, Harry, from your favorite problem child, don't choke on your medicine, man.
And our next speaker is Carl Scortino.
Good evening, Vice Mayor BERTANI, council members, and city staff. I'd like to start with the fires. The fire department, the police, emergency responders, the city workers, they did a great job with that crisis. It was amazing. I live literally by the mall, on pretty close to where the water tower used to be, so I could see the fires on the hill. And it was very rapid response. I could tell that people were moving out. The evacuation orders were being issued. My aunt and uncle live in Rancho Solano, so we tried to rush over there to help them get out, but it had been too late. They'd already blocked off the roads, which is a good thing. We don't need people going into a place where people are trying to evacuate. I wonder, though, since this is becoming an annual thing, what the city can do to help mitigate this type of disaster. And I know, like, most of the fires were in county or state-maintained parts of property, but perhaps the city, what is it, the master plan that we're going to be redoing soon, maybe that can address some concerns that help to cause these type of issues in the future. Like, I know we can't stop lightning strikes. That's not a thing that we have the power to do. But global warming is causing these type of events. So maybe we need to invest in more public transportation to reduce the number of cars on the road, to limit carbon emission. Those are just some ideas that I was having. Perhaps abatement requirements on properties that are bordering the city border need to be extended farther so that we don't have to worry about structures being lost. We didn't lose any this time, but next year we might not be so lucky. I think Vacaville lost hundreds So something to think about. The next thing I want to talk about, my iPad just turned off. So last city council meeting, the city manager said something that kind of shocked me. He said Black Lives Matter, which I'm proud that he said that. I'm encouraged that the city staff, I think he can represent all of the staff, feels that way, and it feels like that we're moving in the right direction because it's not a political issue that Black lives should matter, it's a moral issue. And so we're going in the right way. However, we do have an officer named Dustin Joseph on the staff. I don't need to rehash what the concerns are, but I think that Fairfield could be doing its own investigation into the allegations. I believe the city manager said maybe a month ago in regards to some of the defund the police concerns that he doesn't care what other cities are doing. He cares about what Fairfield's doing. Well, if he cares about what Fairfield's doing, then he shouldn't care that Vallejo's running an investigation, and he shouldn't care that whatever they find as their result of that investigation shouldn't matter about Fairfield. We should do our own investigation because he cares about Fairfield. In that vein, there has been another shooting of a black man last week. I think we all saw that on the news. There were riots in that same city, and then there was a subsequent shooting, which is besides the point. I wonder what the city, our city, is doing so that that doesn't happen here. I brought up the use of force policy, which, since the last time I brought it up, it has been changed on the website, and there is a very long explanation of the use of force policy. But the problem is that it is, the link makes you agree to a disclaimer that basically says that nothing in that policy.
I need to ask you to conclude, please.
Policy.
And our next speaker is Mari Bowie.
One second, sorry. I don't got good there. Can we thank LaShawn? She's here every meeting cleaning this up, and she's the reason why we're here. No one ever said thank you to her, and I really appreciate you, and you deserve some recognition. You always cleaning, and we deserve our right to be able to speak up here. But anyways, I'm back. Hi. I'm here because I have a lot of issues. A lot of stuff has happened since I've been gone, and I'm really, really disappointed. Starting off, fires are super unfortunate, and I know we can't tell where a fire is going to happen or when it's going to happen, but like it happens around the same time. Fire season's around like September, August, so we know they come. This is the third year my family has been under an advisory or had to evacuate. So again, this is a continual thing. So with that being said, we should at minimum have protocols and procedures in place because these don't come as a surprise. Like these fires don't surprise me. I'm getting kind of like, I don't know, sometimes the fire will be close and I'll be like, I don't know, it might not come, but whatever. So this past fire, the majority of evacuation centers that were advertised actually weren't open. We all from Fairfield Change went to those evacuation centers and checked ourselves. Along with that, there's nobody manning the evacuation centers, so like it's kind of a free-for-all. So I don't know where the police, fire, I know the fire department, y'all do y'all thing. But the other folks, like I don't know where they were. We brought a whole bunch of donations, a lot of other people brought donations as well, but like no public officials. Didn't see nobody from the staff, none of that. None of y'all, sorry, I only saw Cam Hosendorf. So there was no supplies for folks other than the supplies that we brought ourselves. There was no communication between the city, the county, the firefighters, the police. It was just ridiculous. Board of Supervisors was confused. So everything was confusing. There was like no communication at all. It was ridiculous. So I'm asking that y'all research and implement safe and comprehensive safety strategies that include disabled folks who can't leave their homes and also the houseless folks because they don't have masks. So being outside in the middle of a fire in the middle of a pandemic that affects your respiratory system is a super big deal. So we need to make sure that we're taking care of them, and we should have protocols and procedures in place now. Next, Dustin Joseph's hiring process brought up very valid concerns about the Fairfield Police Department's hiring practice, but not only that, the lack of transparency between the department and the community. So there's no wonder that the community doesn't really trust the police or the city. But now y'all hire a police chief who has an extremely problematic past. There's 4 huge things that a quick Google search, I don't know, y'all say you have a comprehensive policy for researching the Fairfield, like for hiring people, but like this was a 2-minute Google search. So I don't know if it was comprehensive enough to do the Google. But first, she slapped on charges to a 20-year-old activist named Tiana, and it became national news. Number 2, she left her gun in El Pollo Loco in the restroom, but that's not my real issue. She broke police protocol, put the public and other officers at risk, and then committed an illegal search and seizure of a man, and then charged him with childhood neglect to save her own butt. Third, she protected an officer who was called for a burglary, but the guy wasn't actually committing a burglary. He was fixing his own window to his own home. The cop shot the dog, and then she wouldn't release the camera or the footage. She wouldn't release the body camera footage. Okay, so lack of transparency there. Fourth, on June 1st, she supported the use of force and tear gas on protesters. Just want to add, tear gas is banned in the Geneva Convention. It's banned in war. So really, tear gas shouldn't be used on protesters or citizens if it's banned in war.
30 seconds, Maury.
Thank you. So not only that, using tear gas in the middle of a pandemic that attacks your respiratory system is literally biological warfare. Just want to get that straight. So as an organizer, these hiring practice concerns me, and I feel in danger. I want to emphasize the community is starting to trust folks like us more than the public officials who we put in office. There are folks who believe we do more for the community than our own city, and that's really sad. And it's more indicative of the city's lack of transparency and failure to act. If a group of predominantly 20-year-olds can outdo a group of politicians.
I need you to conclude, please.
And our last public comment speaker is Raymond Cordemunch.
So Raymond Cordemarsh, thank you, Rick, Vice Mayor, and BERTANI. Thank you for your leadership here, Chuck, for your comments tonight. Condolences to the VA Wilson family. Again, Raymond Cordemarsh, I've had the privilege to raise Matt Garcia at age 4. His mom to spend the rest of her life with me. So I thought it was appropriate the mayor recognized today as Matt Garcia Day. And I thought it was appropriate that on behalf of, in his absence, in honor of his mom and our family, that I come and I just thank the mayor for recognizing Matt, and not just recognizing May today as being Matt Garcia Day, but that he's actually an honorary mayor. So I appreciate the mayor doing that and the council support for that. Clearly, this world that we live in, as I say it, as a man of faith, we're broken people in this broken world. We have a tremendous opportunity to improve in things, and I've learned that today we need to assume our position, much like some of the leaders here that have spoken frankly. And I appreciate your candidness, and I appreciate you continue to be here, and those that are leading our city and protecting our city. And again, I desire to hold up your arms in my paradigm in life. I was a homeless youth, street the city of Fairfield. I just steal, rob, and all those horrible things. That was my life. To progress to juvenile halls and jails and prisons, right? This 19-year-old kid in prison facing 1 life sentence. But men came alongside me, began to guide me and teach me habits and patterns to do the right thing for the right reason. Began to keep the ugly things out of my life and surround my life with passionate people like yourself. Began to try to do the right thing for the right reason. And so that's what we poured into our lives, our kids' life, Matt's life, my daughter Brianna's life, my daughter T. Ray's life. Are we perfect by any means? No way. But we continue to suit up and show up. That's what we got to do, right?
we have a future. We have an opportunity to bring change, to be the change, right? We want to see in this world that we live in. And again, you know, many people don't know the back end of the activities, all the great work that the council tries to do. I got it. You know, I mean, I publicly communicated my disconnect with council members in the past, and so invested my own money to publicly communicate. So I take responsibility for that. But again, Chuck, you took my call when I was at Fairfield High when the PG&E went out, right? You helped me get connected to the command post, right? We got to work and help with those, our old senior population, getting different environment, right? So again, we just try to come together with our time, talents, and treasures to be the change, to bring forth change. You know, again, as someone that's passionate, that loves this city, you know, I've become a candidate for District 2. And I don't have all the answers, but I'm committed to hold up the arms of this elected body here. And this, you know, are you perfect? By no means, shape, matter, or form, right? But that's why we have policies, that we have, you know, committees to help guide us and to try to do the right thing for the right reason, to bring the city to where we want it to be, right? Again, there's always two sides, as Paul Harvey would say, right? There's your version, or as he would say, the rest of the story. There's always two sides of everything, right? Your truth, my truth, and then the truth. Let's meet together. Let's hold up each arms together to try to move this great city forward. I'm so excited about the passion of each and every one of you that have spoke here today.
Brother Raymond, I need you to conclude, please.
And I'll conclude now. Again, thank you for the opportunity on behalf of, in the absence of the late Fairfield Councilman Matt Garcia, who I know is here in spirit right now. Thank you for your leadership and the opportunity to just thank you for recognizing today Matt Garcia. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, the consent calendar, please. Oh,
Yes.
do you have any more cards?
No, just
I
for
thought you said that
item
was the
10.
last speaker. Come on up, Kim.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cam. Did I skip you?
Okay.
How did I do that? I'm
So we're going to see me in a minute here. You know what? I want to just thank everybody here first off. You know what? I always like coming to city council meetings. You always feel a strong sense of community, whether you support the ideal or you're in total opposition. We still come together. You know, I felt the same sense of community on Wednesday, August 2019. We're at the evacuation shelters. It was at these evacuation shelters that started at FHS, Fairfield High School, and ended at Sassoon's Nelson Center. We saw many incredible people step up to help their community when it was in need. They didn't have an emergency action plan or formal resources. All they had was love in their hearts and a desire to bring the city together. Although under extreme circumstances, tired, full of emotions, heartbreak, loss, our community showed compassion and led with action. Folk handed out water and masks to combat the heat and the smoke. The FSUSD custodial staff was in full effect, working long hours, opening buildings for our older tenants and at needs folks so they could be safe and socially distant. Paradise Valley workers tirelessly bused passengers from evac centers to evac center to evac center. PV chefs chefed down and fed the folk. We had small businesses that donated food, meals, snacks. Community groups like Fairfield Change went to every single evacuation site listed to confirm if the site was active and updated the community on their findings. The Matt Garcia Center collected abundance of food, clothes, rations that they donated to the victims of the fire and the houseless community. Now, on Matt Garcia Day, September 1st, I think we do a major disservice to the name of the late Matt Garcia if we did not give thanks to the community. So, to all the community members who risked their health, spent their time, and provided their love, this well-deserved thank is for you. You are the true essence of this city. Let's keep building our communal bonds. That's it.
Thank you. Consent calendar. All matters listed on the consent calendar are to be approved with one motion unless a member of the council or the public requests that separate action be taken on a specific item.
Mr. City Manager, are there any changes to the consent calendar?
No.
So moved.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Bertani?
Yes.
Thank you. And then now we have new business. Resolution 2020-180 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield approving a consultant services agreement with the Bob Murray and Associates for the Director of Parks and Recreation. And our presenter is Farbod Peruzman, our HR Director.
Good evening, council members and Vice Mayor Bertani. Tonight, we're asking City Council to adopt a resolution to allow the City Manager to enter an agreement with Bob Murray and Associates for recruiting the recent vacancy in the Parks and Rec Department. As you know, our Parks and Recreation Department is one of our most important and cherished assets. We need assistance to do a nationwide search to find a talented individual to lead this vital department. Parks and Recreation provides an essential service to the community through its parks programs, facilities, and services that foster an active and healthy lifestyle, support positive social interaction, and enhance the city's quality of life. To find the right person to lead the department, we're requesting assistance of Bob Murray and Associates because they have over 25 years of executive recruitment experience in the public sector. And recently, they have placed a number of parks executives in the following municipalities: County of Orange, City of Placentia, City of Roseville, and City of San Jose. The firm has the expertise and the vast network needed to help us find the right person for this important job. That concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions you may have.
Thank you. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Then I will entertain, any other comments? Okay, then I will entertain a motion. We have a move and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Vaccaro?
Yes.
And Vice Mayor Bertani?
Yes.
Thank you. Number 9, Resolution 2020-181 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield approving a technology software as a service, SaaS, agreement with Tyler Technologies, Inc. for an enterprise resource planning software system. And our presenter is our Director of Finance, Emily Combs.
Thank you. Good evening, Madam Vice Mayor and council members. I'm pleased with our digital transformation tonight, which is the selection of an enterprise resource planning system. So why are we doing this? There's many reasons why we're doing this, but one big reason, which has become even more necessary in this pandemic, is the need to reduce our manual administration. We need to be able to take advantage of paperless workflows that ERPs can offer to not only make us more efficient, but also to accommodate those employees that may need to work remotely for whatever reason. We need to be able to quickly access data, which sounds simple, but currently that is not a reality that we have. Finally, our current system has become extremely costly to maintain. Over the years, we've had to develop customizations with our old system. A lot of those customizations, when we have upgrades, they break. So staff has to stop what they're doing to fix these problems that the upgrades have created. So these are kind of some of the costs that we don't see. There it is. But really slows staff down. So just a little bit of background. We have a system that's over 20 years old, and it doesn't play nicely with our other systems that we have in the city. It's a struggle. In HR and finance just alone, there's a lot of duplication of effort. So just as an example, when HR is to onboard a new employee, we're told it takes up to 8 hours to enter information into 3 different systems. A lot of that information is the same information. So this is something that we'd be able to resolve with an ERP system. And finally, this was part of the City Council work plan. So here's a look at our ERP software selection process. We want to emphasize that we are very careful to include city staff along the way, not just with the selection, but with the development of the requirements that went into selecting the software. It was very important that we had their feedback along the way. Key staff sat through demonstrations. They had the opportunity to provide feedback, ratings. We have what we call a core team, which is a team of staff that are considered the sort of experts of their departments or their businesses. They did a lot of heavy lifting, including developing the scripts for the vendor presentations, demonstrations, interviews. They also did the site visits to visit cities that had remotely or virtually that had our top vendor systems. So after all that, we are recommending that the city enter into a contract with Tyler Munis to both acquire and implement an ERP system. Tyler Munis is used by many cities, especially in the Bay Area, which is very helpful. We can reach out to them if we need help incorporating a new system into our business processes. Another plus was that it can replace our permitting and inspection system, which is another system that is not working very well for us and is in need of replacement. It also had the best integration capability with many of our other systems that we have in the city that we would like to keep and we need to keep. And also was just a very good value. So we realize this is an investment. However, we will be able to replace our costly, antiquated financial system with something that's much more efficient that could save us money down the line. I should say this project has already been included in the adopted budget. This is something that we've been, as you know, for the last couple of years, saving up for. And it's not just all in the general fund, it's across city funds. We've been charging the funds to make sure we had enough in fund balance to be able to move forward with this project that is very much needed in our city. So that concludes my presentation. We have Ron Puccinelli, I believe, yes, our Chief Information Officer, and Farbod Peruzmand, our HR Director, who were on the Executive Steering Committee with me to help answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you for the report. Colleagues, any questions or comments? Then I will entertain a motion for item 9. So moved. Seconded by Councilman VACCARO. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Timm?
Yes.
Councilmember VACCARO? And Vice Mayor Bertani?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now we'll move to public hearings. Item number 10, public hearing and first reading and introduction of an ordinance 2020-17 of the City Council of the City of Fairfield, temporarily prohibiting the pre-zoning of territory located outside the City of Fairfield boundaries until a new general plan has been adopted. And our presenter is Senior Planner Amy Kreimeier.
All right. Good evening, council members. So at the July 21st City Council meeting, the council was asked to extend Measure L, which expires at the end of this year. The council chose instead to consider a moratorium on annexations and directed staff to prepare an item which would temporarily prohibit annexations into the City of Fairfield until the general plan update process has been completed. A moratorium allows council to consider the full range of policy options available for the general plan update while honoring Measure L restrictions. Following discussion with the city attorney, staff determined that the most effective way to achieve this is an ordinance precluding pre-zoning of property that could be annexed. So the item before you tonight would temporarily prohibit the pre-zoning of property located out of city limits until a new general plan has been adopted and would apply to all new pre-zoning requests that were all new pre-zoning requests that were not requested or considered complete as of July 21st, the date that you requested the moratorium. Pre-zoning is the act of establishing development regulations for a property before it is annexed and is the primary regulatory action the City Council must take to facilitate an annexation with LAFCO. And so this ordinance would effectively create a nearly complete moratorium on annexation. There is a small collection of properties scattered throughout the city that has been pre-zoned. These are commonly known as islands, and annexations of these properties would still be able to move forward. As mentioned at the July 21st meeting, one annexation is in the process of being reviewed by staff for a small property surrounded by city limits located at the end of Travis Boulevard and Sunset Avenue. It has pre-zoning and would be able to move forward. We have received one additional request for pre-zoning after council requested the moratorium for property along Pittman Road in Cordelia. The property is not pre-zoned, nor is it considered an island by LAFCO. And they are also requesting a general plan amendment. And so that application was deemed incomplete and would be precluded from annexation along with all other similar requests by this proposed ordinance. And so staff is recommending that the City Council adopt Ordinance 2020-17, temporarily prohibiting pre-zoning until the general plan update process is complete. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you for the report. Colleagues, any comments or questions before I open the public hearing? Councilmember Timm. I will go ahead and open the public hearing on item 10. Are there any requests to speak cards?
Yes, I have two.
Okay, please proceed.
Okay, our first speaker will be Duane Crom, and the next speaker will be Kevin Riley. Thank you.
This, well, thanks. There was an incredible deja vu moment for me a moment ago. In 1998, before I got elected, I was the Munis financial consultant for Northern California. It's great software. It's really good software for running businesses. Couldn't believe it. So I'm here tonight representing the Solano County Orderly Growth Committee. We thank you for proposing and possibly approving an ordinance tonight that prohibits annexations to the city until the conclusion of the upcoming general plan process. That's certainly a step in the right direction. And we do support annexing islands. That's been a consistent philosophy of LAFCO, and I think there should be aggressive steps to annex islands. Makes perfect sense. We continue to request that 4 words be added to the ordinance before approval, and that is, and extensions of services. These are the words that are in Measure L and in the current general plan. Services means municipal services such as water and sewer lines. A proposed development in Sassoon Valley will probably soon be knocking on your door to secure services. We think extending municipal services outside the urban limit line is a dangerous precedent. So again, we request adding 4 words, and extensions of services. As a reminder, the current general plan land use policy 3.1 reads, any urban development requiring municipal services shall occur only within the incorporated city and within the urban limit line established by the general plan. We have one question, perhaps best answered by the city attorney. By the end of 2020, we will have a new city council with 7 members. Is it possible that this ordinance could then be changed or canceled by the new council, and if so, how?
So the ordinance can be amended at any time, or it could be repealed. So that is, again, would be a process that would have to go through another public hearing. That would be for the council. But again, being adopted by the council, it could be amended by the council at any time.
Okay. So the force of this moratorium is only as good as the next scheduled council meeting if the moratorium is agendized to be changed. Is that correct?
Oh, that is correct. It is an ordinance like any ordinance adopted by the city council.
Okay. So what you're doing tonight sounds good, feels good, but it's got no teeth. It's got no enduring status for protection. So I thank you for looking good at doing this, but I'm disappointed at your It's your ability to actually do something that's got real protection for farmlands and ag lands around our city. Right.
And our next speaker is Kevin Riley. And then we do have one more speaker, and that will be Trent Sanson.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, council and members of the staff. My name is Kevin Riley, and I am an employee of Greenbelt Alliance. Anyway, I would like just to mention that on July 21st of this year, the council decided to not allow people to vote on the renewal of voter protections for Fairfield's urban limit line, which is granted under Measure L and expiring at the end of this year. It is unfortunate that this decision was made, as we still believe that the best decision for the citizens of Fairfield was to put these tremendous land use decisions to their hands, the power of the vote. We urge City Council to add text to this ordinance stating that the renewal of a voter-protected urban limit line be reviewed in this general plan update and its associated environmental review, and put that on the next available ballot once that general plan is adopted. But until then, however, we welcome efforts by Fairfield to halt annexations as the city plans to update the general plan so that appropriate and smart, environmentally conscious land use decisions can be paramount to the city's future growth. Land use policies determine how the city will take shape long after any elected leader's term and for future generations. This is why Greenbelt Alliance continues to advocate for climate-smart land use decisions that take into account protecting valuable open space, promoting affordable housing that considers the effect of future transportation trends, population growth, and the impacts of climate change. Climate change is happening now. It's very apparent, and it's more important than ever with wildfires being all too common. And we must prepare and protect our communities to the impacts of climate change. We can expect to see a future of drier winters and more wildfires, so we must take action. Greenbelt Alliance advocates for smarter, mixed-use developments in existing urban areas that can bring a city closer together, reduce its carbon footprint, and allow for more parks and recreational opportunities, and enhance the quality of life for its residents. Protecting open space and the immediate area outside of Fairfield, Greenbelts in turn, that can protect Fairfield residents from wildfires and provide much-needed peace with our surrounding beautiful nature. So the ordinance brought today will help keep Fairfield accountable for developing an adequate general plan. Greenbelt Alliance supports how this ordinance will prevent additional annexations during the time period that council, staff, and the wider Fairfield community that is engaged in this planning process, not everyone, make thoughtful and forward-looking decisions as the Fairfield general plan is updated. We hope that an updated general plan will help guide the city towards building a smarter, climate-conscious Fairfield. Greenbelt Alliance looks forward to supporting this upcoming general plan process to ensure it will bring improvements to community development, affordable housing, parks, open space, and mixed-use transit-oriented development in the heart of Fairfield. Although we would have much rather prefer to see a halt on providing water and sewer services as a similar moratorium with annexations, as Dwayne just mentioned, we will be keeping accountable the council's desire to forego any annexations until this general plan process is completed. So please, pass this ordinance and halt annexations until that general plan is completed. And at a good request, I would say, is to please add text to this ordinance to demonstrate your commitment to renewing this urban limit line with a vote of the people when the general plan is done. We believe these commitments from the city during and after this general plan will ensure that Fairfield is ready for a future and be resilient in the face of climate change as well as sustainable growth. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Trent Sanson.
Good evening, honorable members of the City Council. My name is Trent Sanson. I'm here on behalf of the property owners 4475 and 535 Pittman Road over in Cordelia, the property that was referenced in the staff report just a little bit ago. I submitted a letter to the city clerk earlier today that I hope was circulated to you all, and I also have some extra copies if I'm allowed to pass them out here with social distancing and whatnot if you would all like. But I just wanted to come here to speak and make a request for some other minor modifications in our mind as the landowner of this property on Pittman Road to the ordinance before you this evening on this subject. A little bit of background on us as the owners of the property on Pittman Road at 475 and 535. Several years ago, we were pursuing a general plan amendment, rezone, annexation at that point in time when a lot of other residential development was going on in the Cordelia area. And after a lot of community feedback and input, drew those applications, just people saying too much housing, no more housing, do anything but housing. So several years ago, we withdrew that application and are now currently processing our final building permits for our adjacent 4 acres right next door that's in the city limits already for a self-storage. And on July 26th, we followed up with our annexation application for our remaining 8 acres next door at 475 and 535 Pittman Road. As staff mentioned, it's technically not an island, but from our perspective, it is a peninsula surrounded by city limits on 3 sides. If you're driving down Pittman Road, you would never guess that it is actually not in the city as it is already, just being just on the edge of the county backing up to Green Valley Creek. We would like to request a modification of the ordinance that we would be allowed to continue processing our annexation application that we submitted on July 26th. Shame on me for not doing more due diligence on it, but we were not aware that the city was considering a moratorium on annexations at the time when we submitted on July 26th, and actually found out on August 11th that this was being before you all this evening, which is what prompted our letter earlier today and my attendance here this evening. I'm totally supportive of moratorium on large annexations, preventing urban sprawl outside of the urban limit lines. But as mentioned, our property is already surrounded by city limits on 3 sides, representing a peninsula well within the urban limit line, which is on the south side of Cordelia Road, which our property is near, just across from the Bridgeport Apartments on there. I've spoken with Mr. Feinstein in the planning department that we, as part of our application, we were considering changing the land use from service commercial to community commercial for one of those 2 parcels on Pittman Road. I've committed to withdrawing those applications to allow the city's general plan update to occur without us conflicting with our proposed general plan amendment, but would sincerely appreciate consideration for us being exempted from the annexation moratorium, similar to the other islands throughout Fairfield, so that we can bring the city property into the city limits as it's been planned in the general plan under service commercial, and hopefully be able to participate in that general plan up. So sincerely appreciate your consideration tonight, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any other speaker cards? No. Okay, then I will close the public hearing and bring it back for council action. Colleagues, any questions or comments?
Yes,
Councilman
Madam Vice Mayor.
Okay, Councilwoman Moy, go ahead and proceed, please.
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. 2 things. I wanted to talk about the addition of the language that Mr. Quam spoke about. I oppose that. And then when we just heard from the landowner out there, I took a look at those maps, and it makes sense to me that we put that land in this now and allow it to try to go through annexation. I did speak with Dave Feinstein and the city manager today about this, and they think it's a long shot that it'll make it anyway to LAFCO, because it's not a real island. It's a peninsula. You can look at it. It belongs inside the city, and it's that simple. And I think that we should have the cutoff date as of today, since today is the day that we are actually putting the ordinance into law. So that's those are my thoughts on it, and I'd sure like to have you all agree to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Moy. Councilman Tim, please.
Yeah, thank you. We'll take the last one first. I'm in agreement too. Matter of fact, when I got your email, I did not know that it wasn't in the city. It looks like it's in the city. When island versus peninsula, what doesn't make it an island is the back is the creek, obviously. And I'm certainly not opposed to that, especially if you'll go in accordance with what we want to do, which is you'll withdraw your applications and you go through the general plan, and I support that. Then I want to go back to the former when Dwayne Crom and Kevin were talking about times change. Yeah, this was done, 17 years ago, and times do change. You make it sound like we're being disingenuous when you say, well, we can change the moratorium. Yeah, I guess we could, but I'm telling you that I wouldn't vote for it. But what I am telling you is, let's take a piece of property that I thought was in the city. Let's say outside of Anheuser-Busch. That's county. A ton of property. What if you get a large corporation that says, hey, we want to come to Fairfield, we want to go to that property. If we cannot extend services, what do you tell them? Hey, you can buy the property, and in 2 years, 3 years, when the general plan is finished and is voted on, I don't have an issue with that, then we can get you water and sewer. You know what they'll say is, thank you, no. Why would we want to handicap ourselves? Makes no sense. I think what this boils down to, and nobody said it tonight, is Wood Creek 66. It's a very, very small piece of property. I've seen it out there for 50 years. Rocks grow on it, I guess. It's in the county. I don't really have a concern one way or the other. What I do have a concern about is that we take one small issue, divide it over 40 square miles, and handicap the public policy part of being on the city council. I'm not looking to annex. I wouldn't vote for any annexations. The general plan needs to play out, and when it plays out, let the chips fall. If you want us to consider a development, put it in an application. That's fine, but no more. Nobody wants to pave over the valley. I sat for several years on the Susan Valley Fund Advisory Board. Out of the lawsuit, Dwayne, you know what that is. Vintners, the grape growers, the farmers, the landowners. Like I said, these land wars have been going on for 30 years, 40 years. I think they're finally finished, but I am a very strong supporter of the moratorium, and I'm a supporter for, I guess your company got caught up because there was no moratorium even thought about until the 21st of July. And I think that's fair. I think that's reasonable. And those are my statements. Madam Vice Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Tim. Councilman Vaccaro, please.
Yeah, I'm okay with what Mr. Sansom is requesting, and I'm also, I am not in favor of any annexation into the valley. I know this moratorium has to be taken seriously. I know there's some people out there that don't think that we are taking it seriously, but I know I am, okay? I don't want to see any growth into the valley. I think that right now we have a beautiful Sassoon Valley out there, and I don't want to see that change. And I've said that to other people out there, so I'm just making that clear right now. But with Mr. Sampson's request, I drove out there too. I actually did think it was in the city limits too, so I don't see a big issue there. But as far as the future goes, I definitely want to keep our valley agriculture, or let's say, agriculture friendly at least, but no major developments at all. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Vaccaro. Mr. City Attorney, are there any legal issues that we need to consider regarding the property owner's request this evening?
On that item, on that request, and it sounds like the council is receptive to making a change to allow that to proceed. What we can do here is we would change section 3 of the ordinance, and I would revise it to read as follows. The prohibition of section 2 above shall not apply to any applications for pre-zoning that were filed prior to September 2nd, 2020. And as of right now, that's the only one that's currently on file with the city. And so that would accomplish the result here. It would prohibit all other future annexations coming in, applications from being the pre-zoning being adopted, but it would allow the Pittman Road project to go through the normal process.
So procedurally, Councilwoman Moy, proceed.
Thank you. Yeah, so I just wanted to go ahead and move forward with a motion based on what the city attorney just said, exactly those words. And one other thing I wanted to mention, so I'm making a motion to do that. The other thing is that I just wanted to say, I understand, I don't understand the game that people are playing when they stand up and say they want to let people vote on this stuff. It was not voted on before. And the only reason why there was a vote is because me and a lot of other people got together and we did a referendum. And that's what they voted on. The city council never allowed anybody to vote on it. And I thought that was you know, well, that was their decision. So I just want to make that clear. I don't want people to think that there was ever, the city council made it law. That's just what they did. So, well, anyway, that's my motion, and that's what I got.
Thank you, Councilwoman Moy. So we have a motion on the floor as articulated by the city attorney. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Vaccaro. Roll call vote, please.
And that motion will be to waive further reading of the ordinance and introduce it for first reading.
Yes.
Roll
Okay,
call vote, please.
Roll call. Councilmember Moy?
Yes.
Councilmember Tim?
Yes.
Councilmember Vaccaro? And Vice Mayor Bertani?
Yes.
Thank you.
There is no other business before this body this evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We adjourn. Before you start moving, please. We adjourn this evening in the memory of B. Gail Wilson and Matt Garcia. Good night.